Hi, and welcome to today's session on practicing reading comprehension at home. Today we're going to focus on strategies that will allow your child to make strong connections to what they're reading. So what is reading comprehension? Reading comprehension is understanding what we read, but it's actually more than that. It's the way that we form opinions, thoughts, and connections to what words mean together. Reading comprehension is important because it's almost like having a conversation with someone in a different language. If you don't understand what's being said, you have nothing to add, and you're basically lost in the conversation. So what makes a good reader? Good readers practice. Good readers also are engaged in what they're reading. They ask questions and they gain information to make sense of the words on the page. What can you use to read? Fortunately, reading is all around us, whether it's a recipe in the kitchen or a how-to guide for arts and crafts, we are always reading. We take lists and we may use them at the grocery store or another store, or even be reading the items on the shelves. In addition, in technology, we're always reading to find websites, games, and additional information. Reading takes practice, and many students have reading comprehension goals on their IEP. Here's one example in our Rethink Ed platform. In addition, if you have a Rethink Ed account, you have access to our reading comprehension lesson plans and materials. Simply log into your account, go into lessons. At the top, you can search reading, and you'll see everything that we have here in terms of lesson plans and materials to strengthen your child's connection between what they read and what they understand. I'll be showing you some examples as we go through these strategies today. So where do we begin? If reading takes practice, it also takes positivity. So there are two things to keep in mind when we're getting started. One, we want something that's going to be interesting to your child, and two, we want it to be manageable. So in this case, I know that my child enjoys learning about animals, so I chose a passage from Rethink Ed that talks about animal habitats, and these are words that my child already knows, and it's a length that I know that he can stick with and focus on. You can start small and build up, just make sure it's of interest and something that they can already read. Before you read, you can also spark interest by doing a story walk. This is where you go through the passage or the book and start sharing some vocabulary words that may give you a hint to what's going on in the story, as well as pictures. Your child can write or draw what they think will happen and share it at the end of the story. You can also either take a video or an audio clip and share what you think might happen in the story, so that when you're done, you can hear it back and see who was closest to the actual events that happened. When you make a prediction, the main question is, what do you think this story is about? Again, we want your child to use those words that they already know and the pictures to draw some conclusions of what they think the story might be about. And we want to share that out because we can always go back and check on these predictions at the end and see how close we were. While you're reading, you always want to summarize with your child or take a snapshot of what they've read. So it might be one key detail about a character, or it may just be, what was the setting? Where does this take place? It could be periods of time like what came first, next, or last. All of this information will help your child to start forming those connections and make meanings to the words that they're reading. In addition, if you're reading a character book or a longer passage, this is a great way to keep track of what's going on in the story, because all of these events will build on each other. You could also do a recording like a reporter, so your child could practice interviewing a character. Who is the character? What is the story about? When did the story happen? And where did it happen? You can also vary these questions and use them in different ways too. After reading, you want to retell the story with the key details. If your child struggles with this, you can always model for them what that looks like with statements like, in the beginning, we did, or the main character was, and you can get them started, prompt them, and they can add to it. If you're reading a long passage, a chapter book, or some information with lots of details, you can also use a KWL chart. And that is what we know, what we want to know, and what we have learned. It's a great way to add on as you're reading and summarize what has been read as you go through. This is also the time where you can review those predictions and see who was the closest to the actual story. Other resources that you'll find in Rethink Ed are different types of graphic organizers and also some very common fables and other readers that you could use to promote more reading comprehension practice. Other sources would be virtual field trips where you could go on and see videos and articles. This also can pique interest in some new things that your child might be interested in. TV shows and movies, you can practice with closed caption if you're working on some specific words and identifying those in signs and around the house, and even in TVs and movies, you could certainly do that. If you're reading a book that has a movie that goes with it, this is a great way to prompt a conversation about the similarities and differences, or even the difference in characters and settings and the way that the movie portrays the story versus the book. For YouTube videos, many times authors will read their books aloud and discuss them. So again, this is a great way to go back and start to make meaning and connection to what the author meant, their voice, and also what they meant by the story and the details. And then, of course, using reading around us. So whether it's going to the neighborhood and reading signs, going to parks, looking at different street signs, having conversations about your day in terms of what you did first, next, last. Again, reading is all around us, and what we comprehend is all around us too. And then finally, we want to celebrate the successes. Reading is hard work. Reading comprehension takes concentration, and it takes a lot of patience. So this is a great way to connect with your child, to learn about what they like, their opinions, and how they see the world, and you can share that with them too. Thanks so much for joining me today.